in the same way that it has. So now I'd like to turn this over to Jim to talk about the Tallaboa Community Microgrid Project. Jim, if you want to take yourself off mute, and I think you can start sharing. I think I've enabled that, but I will work on ending my share.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. Bear with me just a second. Everybody got that? Can you see
that's
the?
good.
Okay, give me a second here to make sure I've got enough bandwidth here. Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Jim Boss, CEO of Industrial Chemicals Corporation. Established in 1974, my company specializes in the manufacture and sale of water treatment and manufacturing process-specific chemicals, backed by expert technical support. With 40 employees, including licensed engineers and chemists, we have been a part of the Tallaboa community for 46 years. I'm here today to show you what we believe to be the future of community microgrids in Puerto Rico. The idea behind the Tallaboa Community Microgrid was born soon after the devastating effects of the hurricanes in September 2017. After months of inaction by the state, we became determined that neither ourselves nor our community would ever be affected in this manner again. Recognizing our moral and social obligations to address climate change in any way we could, renewable energy was our only option forward. Further in line with my company's environmental, social, and governance criteria, we chose to scale the project to serve our own power needs as well as that of our neighboring community, initially considering using the electric utility grid for distribution. Through exposure to the Fundación Borincana and their PRECAP program, we incorporated the missing element needed to avoid prolonged outages: resiliency, defined as the ability to recover readily. The sum of our efforts, the Tallaboa Community Microgrid. Simply stated, it is affordable, resilient electricity. Consider it the first scalable multi-user community microgrid in Puerto Rico, providing our community with clean and adaptable energy at a lower cost, while offering our municipality a model to achieve greater control of its energy future. Our sustainable energy will directly benefit our neighbors who have been battered by natural disasters and high power costs from a bankrupt utility. We will transform Tallaboa into an oasis, free from the instability of the utility grid, ensuring that businesses remain open and productive processes continue. More importantly, our resilient power positively impacts the health of our community through sustainable generation, the displacement of portable generators, and the assurance of continual operation of critical medical devices. Let's take a look at where we are today. ICC has created a subsidiary named Salt Flat Energy to manage the development of the project. SFE was christened as such after the neighboring disused saltwater evaporation ponds, testament to the high solar irradiance in our area. As project sponsor, SFE will handle all municipal negotiations and create the bankruptcy remote vehicle known as Tallaboa Community Microgrid LLC, while also providing the required land, thereby ensuring no issues on site control. SFE will also pursue funding from public programmatic and philanthropic sources, as well as from private capital to facilitate the installation of TCM's generation and storage assets. To move forward, we are looking for lenders, capital providers, keen to participate in a pioneering approach to distributed energy in Puerto Rico via an asset-backed impact investment with a replicable structure offering social, environmental, and strong risk-adjusted returns. We have visibility into a phase 1 investment of $3.6 million, and with financial support, we can accelerate project development and meet our goal of energy production and distribution by July 2021. Transitioning to our geographic location, our project is sited on the southern coast of Puerto Rico in the Tallaboa ward of the municipality of Peñuelas, at one of the top direct normal installation sites on the island. Phase 1 of our project represents less than 0.05% of the total annual energy consumed in Puerto Rico, a readily attainable market. Notice the proximity of Peñuelas with 20,000 inhabitants only 4 miles away, which represents a 400 times growth multiple over our phase 2 target. And Ponce is 7 miles away with a population 6 times greater than Peñuelas. That is scalability. Regarding initial regulatory requirements, the Tallaboa Community Microgrid has been duly registered with the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau. The Energy Bureau is considering the Tallaboa Community Microgrid as a pilot project for what their island energy vision is. Now let's talk deployment. Phase 1 engineering, procurement, and construction incorporates 1 megawatt of solar PV generation with commensurate battery storage and backup generation. This initial investment of $3.6 million, net of distribution, will afford a controlled and manageable implementation of the initial phase, along with a gateway into feasible expansion. Phase 1 will occupy 2 acres of ICC's 15 total acres, land already zoned for this type of project. Our target will be nominally 20 customers, a mix of small businesses and residences, in addition to the power purchase agreements with PREPA and ICC. So how do we plan to grow? Following the same model as Phase 1 EPC, we scale in size to meet growing off-taker demand. Phase 2 will target 50 customers, and future growth will continue to add on generation, storage, and distribution as required. We are forecasting at least a 100% annual growth rate until we reach Peñuelas and then Ponce, upon which the numbers increase significantly. A Phase 2 investment of $7.6 million brings the total investment through year 2 to over $11 million. To better illustrate the scalability aspect, this aerial view of the project shows the generation and storage facility located on ICC's property. Also shown is the proposed route of the initial distribution system in red and the PREPA low voltage line in dark blue. Also identified are the potential customers and the public school where we intend to create the local resilient community center for times of need. Please note both the considerable number of residences within 2 miles of our facility, identified by Phase 2 and Phase 3, as well as the additional property available both at ICC and the surrounding area, over 200 acres, allowing for the potential development of a utility-scale generation facility. All of this land has either never been used or has been idle for over 20 years. Next, we'll talk about interfacing our community customers. The Tallaboa Community Microgrid off-takers will be managed as follows. Sales to industrial customers in PREPA will be handled via power purchase agreements, and local customers and residences will be regulated through software-based terms and conditions established by the DexGrid platform. More on that in a bit. The commercial customers in our area are all long-term, with more than 20 years in business. Initial conversations with them have shown a strong inclination to move towards more economical and dependable energy sources. They range from machine shops, construction management firms, family restaurants, and local colmados. Residences are for the most part lower income, multi-generational family dwellings. These are who we want to impact with more affordable, resilient energy. Further to converting the school into a resilient community center, we also intend to create and introduce a renewable energy course to be incorporated into their science curriculum. Various Tallaboa Poniente and Tallaboa Encarnacion residents have had exposure to my company, either as career employees, contractors, or temporary workers. We are recognized and respected in the community through these relationships, as well as from our deep-rooted support of the local school. What sets us apart from other microgrids? The linchpin to our project is the independent distribution system allowing for true resiliency. Its design, installation, and operation will focus on mitigating downtime and allowing immediate response when interruptions do occur. The flexibility offered by a wholly owned system ensures rapid scalability as demand grows. It also removes the friction associated with interconnecting to the existing electric utility network. While we recognize that this independent system represents the biggest challenge in our project, we are confident that the municipality will champion our effort as an example for future microgrids, not only in Peñuelas, but other municipalities as well. And with the utility grid passing into the control of a mainland concessionaire, municipalities will want greater control of their energy and its cost. So we have generation and distribution, But how do we transact the sale of energy to our commercial and residential off-takers? Enter the DexGrid platform, illustrated simply here. The Tallaboa Community Microgrid will be powered by DexGrid, with their technology stack contributing the following to our project: an interface for microgrid customers handling billing, prepayments, and services, a virtual energy manager providing incentives for consumers to save on their electricity bills, a performance optimizer through high-level data aggregation, a trusted layer ensuring real-time revenue distribution, and a trusted and transparent renewable energy certificates issuance and exchange platform. DexGrid CEO Nico has been working closely with us, so do not hesitate to ask him about their technology. All projects have key investment considerations, and we've abridged ours as follows. Politics. Peñuelos can potentially be the first municipality on the island to implement this type of microgrid, independent from the state-run utility. Also, Law 17 of 2019 has mandated 100% renewable energy generation in Puerto Rico by 2050, a public policy well aligned with our effort. Regulations. We have existing favorable conditions on interconnection, and the PR Energy Bureau is considering the Tallaboa Community Microgrid as a pilot. Customer base. A diversified counterparty portfolio with power purchase agreements and peer-to-peer prepayments supported by utility-based collection measures. Technology. Tier 1 equipment provided by the best-in-class suppliers. Growth. Scalability and land offering robust growth potential up to utility scale. And return. According to the Financial Times, the majority of environmental, social, and governance funds outperform wider markets over 10 years. Overall, Puerto Rico is a great place to invest, particularly with 95% of the island designated opportunity zone and the groundswell to return pharma to the island. I invite you to look into Invest Puerto Rico and the newly created Puerto Rico Incentives Code for Act 60. On to the fiscal highlights of our project. The development phases referred to in our project tie into each year of operation, currently starting in June of that year. Phase 1 is year 1 and so on. Our revenue sources are from the sale of power priced at a rate close to 4 cents per kilowatt hour below PREPA's existing rate, which we all know will be going up. The generation and sale of renewable energy certificates is currently somewhat opaque, but we have been advised that procedures could be established as soon as 2022, leading to another revenue source. RECs can be sold to island power consumers to substantiate renewable electricity use claims. Recognizing that phase 1 is a pilot to establish the base for scalability and improve resiliency, it still offers sound returns in the hands of a tax-efficient owner. For the first 3 years, the figures represent local scaling within 2 miles and do not include the town of Peñuelos with 20,000 inhabitants only 4 miles away, which we intend to penetrate by year 4. Thereafter, Ponce is 7 miles away and a population of 130,000. The whole of Peñuelos residents alone, not considering commercial or industrial customers, represents annual electricity sales of over $25 million. Ponce is over $150 million. Also consider that while we are talking about local scalability, our project is replicable throughout Puerto Rico. So fitting it all together, here's a quick view of the Tallaboa Community Microgrid structure. The sponsor and lender investor, backed by insurance, fund the TCM bankruptcy remote vehicle, which provides energy via the third-party distribution system to the off-takers. The microgrid customers then prepay for energy credits, thereby accessing the power provided by TCM. The revenue generated is distributed to the lenders, investors, sponsor, O&M provider, and distributor via DexGrid software-based revenue distribution. Energy is also sold to PREPA and ICC via PBAs. DexGrid facilitates electric power service company reporting and RECs generation to the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau, ensuring regulatory compliance. And while growing, again, we follow the same model as phase 1 to achieve the desired scope, scalability, and replicability. We invite you to join us in realizing the future of microgrids in Puerto Rico, offering sustainable and resilient energy through innovative distribution and customer interface platforms, community by community. Thank you for your time and attention. We would welcome the opportunity to amplify our project details and the financial opportunities that it offers.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Appreciate the presentation. Very well done. Wanted to encourage anyone, if they want to write questions, we definitely have a few questions. I've been getting texts from a couple of the mentors and others we can follow through. So maybe just following, one question that came to us was, Jim, I guess how you guys are looking at your off-taker demand. How are you quantifying that?
Well, we've approached it in a very conservative manner. We're looking at individual consumers, for instance, my company, other residences, other commercial businesses in our area, and we're looking at the peak demand and tying it in with regional consumption behavior to establish what that off-taker demand is going to be to properly size phase 1, phase 2, and so on.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat, so we'll go back to one on the text. Oh, yeah, standalone distribution. You and I have talked about this a number of times. Basically, how do you project going through permitting and PREPAs right away, and then maybe coming back to for those people who are not on the island, why?
Well, that's a good question. As I mentioned in my presentation, I believe the issue with the distribution system is going to be possibly the stickiest. However, with the new concessionaire, maybe there'd be light at the end of the tunnel. The tunneling might be able to work better through them. They may eventually be able to become the third-party energy distributor in our model. But right off the bat, we can't wait for that. As I said, when we got hammered by the hurricanes, this is something that, having lived through it, and my employees have lived through it, and Puerto Rico lived through it, this is something we never want to have to go through again. And whatever we can contribute to make sure that doesn't happen is where we want to go. So we can't sit around and wait. If we waited for PREP or anybody to get anything done, we're going to be around for a long time. So we've looked at putting in our own distribution system, scaling it bigger. We have discussions with the municipality to better define the right-of-way for the existing PREPA line. However, we're approaching it more from establishing new easements and new rights-of-way. Discussions with both private landowners and the municipality to get through phase 1.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, somebody on the chat actually asked that same question, so we're doubling it up. Thanks for the answer. I think, well, another one in terms of, we talked about scale of investment, and 3.6 million, is a lot of money for a lot of people, but for investors coming in, there's definitely a preference for larger scale. Why did you approach it in phases rather than maybe combining them and having much larger potential?
Well, at the beginning, it goes back to what I just mentioned. Approaching in phases allows us to start immediately. Again, we have to approach this, and we are approaching it now as having our own distribution system. And in order to get that done, we have to start on a somewhat realistic basis, if you will. We're confident that we can get there, and once we have the time and have developed further negotiations with the entities that are going to be allowing distribution rights, distribution easement access, then we can grow more. It also limits our CapEx, making it a more reasonable investment for initial investment. And then and by doing so, we can control our costs and immediately pass on the savings to the customers.
So just following up on that, if you will, the phase 1 that you're talking about, you're basically, you control, but through mostly private property or municipal group, the small distance that you need to go to connect up your immediate neighbors, so to speak, to benefit from the resiliency that they require from that first one-ish megawatt of on-site production.
Correct. Yeah, we control probably 75% of the easement. Then we just need to start negotiating the final run to the school. And I think pushing the issue of the school as a local community resilience center is going to help. I think it's something the community needs. So we're confident that we can get that done.
Terrific. Let's see. Question. Oh, good. Now I'm getting questions from the pipe. Would DexGrid be the asset manager operator of the generating facility? Will Salt Flat Energy be the owner?
Salt Flat Energy is going to be the sponsor, and we're looking for partners to invest in this project, in the Tallaboa community microgrid. DexGrid, because of its efforts to date, and we've been working closely with them, will be a participant in Salt Flat Energy. As far as the details of the technology of DexGrid and how it's going to manage and operate the system, I'm going to defer that more technical answer to Nico, who's present here, if anybody has questions specifically on how the DexGrid system works.
Thanks, Jim. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So yeah, so the idea is basically, for DexGrid to be a software-based platform. So the whole purpose of our platform application is to be as flexible and as low cost as possible, so that it enables the microgrids like the anchor like Jim, for instance, to start to go in phases. Start with phase one, start proving its case of resiliency and also affordable rates. We're looking at cents under PREPA for the community. And then as the case has been proven, to be able to scale, meaning that the need to reduce frictions is fundamental to be able to onboard customers and to be able to align their interests, their consumption behavior, whatever the profile of the supply energy is going to be. So we are not the asset manager. We don't own the asset. The Salt Flat Energy does. We basically support every billing, prepayment, data aggregation, every alignment with the consumption behavior, every effort toward energy efficiency to the consumer as a sidekick to the Salt Flat Energy. So we do not manage the asset. We provide all the link between the supply capacity and the customers.
Yeah, maybe there's a follow-up question to that. I think just to clarify that the software interfaces, the end user, the asset manager, the owner, the regulator. So it was kind of, does it do the end user, the asset manager, or both? It's actually more than that. So, yes?
I'm sorry?
There was a follow-up question on the chat that I'm just reading. The DEX should be a software interface with the end user, the asset manager, or both.
Yes.
And I think you answered the question in the process, but I wanted to give you an opportunity because I know it does a lot more. It can interface with the maybe this is a time to ask about how RECs fit into this as well.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thanks, Tom. So basically the way it works is that it's going to capture the data at the source from the supplier of energy, from the consumer of energy, and then it will aggregate the data at the top at the high level, and then it will compute it back to all the equipments and also all the appliances, so that we can maximize the performance, the economic performance of the assets, and at the same time we can align the energy consumption for the consumer in reference to two questions, which is how much do you consume and when do you consume? So the how much is important, we all know that, and we speak about energy efficiency and conservation, but the when is as important as the how much. There are times during the day, because we're using different kind of renewable profile in terms of supply capacity, where the consumer is going to be incentivized to basically put the AC on at that time of the day. And there'll be a graphic that will definitely show to the consumer how much he's going to be able to save by just, letting the software, control that kind of operations on his behalf. So that's, the software-based approach, the data aggregation, the alignment to the consumer, which at the end, reduces capex because it means you don't need to go to an $11 million equipment cost from the get-go, not knowing exactly how much you're going to basically use for the community. The idea is not to sell to PREPA. The idea is to basically go with the community, provide very affordable rates, resiliency, and anything that is excess of that is sold to PREPA. Speaking about prosumers as well, anyone that has an equipment also will have the ability to plug himself into the microgrid and sell its excess of energy to the microgrids on its own. And that will be managed by the software itself. So this is on the software side. Who do we reach? So we reach the users, whether you are a consumer, you are a prosumer, or you are a producer. We also reach the asset manager, which is Jim in that situation. And we also reach the regulator, for instance. So on speaking about the rec market, we have been in conversation with the regulator to have our issuance of RECs to be certified by the Bureau. So if you look at a flow, for instance, of a system generating clean energy, every kilowatt hour you're going to have in your wallet, and you owe me token that is basically going to accumulate. And those you owe me are going to be certified by the Bureau. On the other side, anyone that looks to purchase those tokens, which are basically the RECs, we have a letter of interest from one of the largest provider of electricity on the island, is going to have a IOU, and that IOU is going also to be processed through the interface. And those you owe me IOU are going to net each other. The bank account that is connected to the buyer of that REC is going to deliver the money to the other side, and the other side will just deliver the REC. Everything is going to be highly transparent, highly regulated, certified by the Bureau.
Great. Let me get back to a couple of other questions. There's I guess a more technical question, but basically it's the addressing the design of the system to take into consideration the seismic activity going on in Peñuelas and Guayanilla. Clearly, it's an active area. We've seen that straight up. I mean, you could also say hurricanes and other things obviously need to be factored into. So what have you looked at so far or plan to look at in order to make sure that the generation and the distribution assets are reliable?
As far as the generation assets go, they're going to be ground mounted, and we are going to defer to the experts on this. The contractors that we hire to install the equipment are going to have to factor that into the design. We're confident that it can be done. We have a significant amount of assets there on the ground already, which, and we are basically in the epicenter of the earthquakes, have not been affected. As far as the distribution system, same thing goes for that. The third party that is going to design and install the distribution system is going to have to do so. So it meets what we want to do to establish resiliency. It has to be robust. It has to be readily accessible and easy to maintain. So that's basically, again, I'm going to defer to the experts on this.
I think there's a good question here from Nina. She's asking about how you approached your community engagement and how you work with them to identify the school as the community center.
These engagements, have started quite a few years ago. Every summer the school would sit unused, unmaintained, grass would grow, water fountains would get vandalized, air conditioners get stolen. So we ended up adopting that school, and we would help get it back running every fall. We have a very strong relationship with both the prior principal of that school, the current principal. They need something, they come to us, we help them out. and we've initiated conversations with them to start. So we're basically at the school level, and they're very receptive to that. On the municipal level, I think it makes perfect sense where it is, particularly for our phase one. The school sits right on the same road as the community we are planning to supply power to. So that's how we chose that school. It's obviously a sizable building that can handle the community, and it can handle a fair amount of the people who live across the highway in Tallaboa, Encarnacion.
Terrific. So I think we're getting to, I guess, 1:52. Want to make sure that we've got enough time for CP and the others. Maybe I'm trying to think if there's another. I don't know if you. There was a question here. I don't know if you guys want to say a little bit more about you tracking or quantifying renewable energy credits in Puerto Rico. That's sort of maybe a parting question, and we'll move on to Proyecto Reenfoco.
Jim, should I answer this?
Yeah, Nico, please do.
All right. So this is I think an extremely important question to address, and this is not like Desgrid is coming around and is creating a market that does not exist. This market exists. It exists in the sense that RECs have been on the island, but exchange of RECs do not happen. And there is a reason why it does not happen, is because there is an opacity on the market. There is no transaction platform or bridges that exist, so that each and every one, buyers and sellers, have the certainty and the guarantee that it's priced the right way and that they will get paid at the right time. So this is a matter of trust. And the matter of trust for anyone, mostly investors, as you all know, is if there is no trust, there is no transaction. So that's what we're basically bringing in. And in addition to that trust, we also bring the fact that you do not need to go through legal frictions. You do not need to go through layers of paperwork and processes to be able to do that. Through the Desgrid interface, you can literally have your settings that say, I'm looking to purchase this amount of RECs every month, for instance, depending upon how much clean tokens you need, and that the system will basically sell those to you on its own. So we're using a technology that is decentralized. I can throw the word right there. It's called the blockchain. Some of you are familiar with, some of you are not. I am definitely hoping that the one that are not, please do reach out to me. I love to talk about it. Maybe sometimes a little bit too long, but this is very important. Is that today we have the technology and the ability to process those RECs, and those RECs are priced at $35 currently in the market. That's $35 multiplied by the amount of megawatt hour is a lot of money to the asset manager, and this is money that is owed, that is due, and we are helping, just facilitating to process it.
Great. All right. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Jim. Great presentation.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Yeah, and then there's a question here from Andy Darrell, but I think that's maybe better asked at the end of CPs. We'll get back to it. All right. So, oh, fact.